Next is poet Sam Aureli in a reading of his original work.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Aureli, and I'll be reading from my forthcoming book titled On the Edge of Knowing. It's due out in spring of 2026. So I don't have books today, but I do have bookmarks that has some information on there, and you can follow along on the journey of my website, Substack, Twitter, and Instagram. On the Edge of Knowing came about during a major life event. For most of my life, I worked in a very intense work environment, and I never had time to breathe. Never had time to sit still, working long hours, going to school at night, earning my architecture degree, leading worship at church, all while trying to raise a family. And I eventually hit a wall and came crumbling down. And out of those ashes, the book came into being. So I'm going to be reading hopefully 6 poems from On the Edge of Knowing, beginning with Between Stars and Silence. And I should put my glasses on. The earth turns, a blue pearl in the void, poised between fire and ice. Spinning just so. A fraction off, and breath would fade. Tides might shrug the moon's pull, and we'd drift, cut loose in the dark. Yet oceans brush the shore, waves rising and falling. A blind hand tracing the curve of a familiar face. Was it whispered into being? A sigh from ancient depths, or flung here, a coin cast into a cosmic well. And me? I'm just a bit of motion, a pocket of warm blood, caught midway through the mystery, turning it over, a dull penny found on a street I don't remember walking. In the waiting. I kneel in the asparagus patch, shears in hand, cutting back the brittle ghosts of last year's growth. Each stem a memory, each snip a quiet prayer. The earth does not flinch. It takes the gesture without question. Nothing breaks the surface yet, but I ready the soil anyway, my hands learning the slow language of return. This too is how we live, clearing what no longer blooms, trusting the root that waits in silence to rise. This next poem is probably the first poem I wrote that was accepted in a literary journal. So it holds a special place in my heart. It's called Lost in the Woods, first published in the Atlanta Journal. The great American beach looms, its autumn leaves scattered below. Scaly cones of the eastern white pines lie spent among broken twigs. The crunch beneath my feet fills the quiet. No one travels here but the deer, the squirrel, the wood thrush singing. Fresh scrapes mark the fissured tulip bark, a black bear speaking in a tongue only the wild remembers. My claws are mute, my voice without melody. The wind carries the forest chatter, creaking branches, tumbling leaves. The aging white birch, skin unfolding, leans close and whispers, "Where are you going?" I've roamed poplars and spruces, brushed the stag's graze, heard the mourning dove coo, sought the great horned owl by night, yet these woods grow strange to me. In the distance, a brook's rush threads through roots and worn stone, its babble a steady hand, guiding me toward open waters, where the silt of the world drifts on. This next poem, something can be difficult these days, especially to write poems about hope. But this is a poem about hope titled "Even Now, the Light." Listen. The earth still breathes beneath our hurried steps, its ancient pulse dwelling in the roots of trees, in the hush between waves. But we do not hear it. We walk with our heads bent, hands full of loss, as night folds itself over the fields, as the wind threads through the reeds. Even the moon turns away. But not all is lost. Look how the morning spills light into the empty spaces, how the hermit thrush lifts a note of gold against the fading dark. Spring comes anyway. And what is the sun if not the hand of mercy? What is the wind if not a voice calling us home? Even now, the earth begins again. Even now, there is light enough to find our way. I spent some time reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and the reason I decided to read it was because my uncle in Italy co-authored a book with a gentleman in Italy, an author, that somehow traces the Aureli lineage back to Marcus Aurelius. I don't know how accurate that is, nor do I have any land or titles to show for it, but this poem came about from a quote in the book Meditations. "Whatever this is that I am, it is flesh and a little spirit and intelligence," by Marcus Aurelius. The poem is called "Call It Soul." I watch my hand in the half-light, a weathered map of old roads, dusty towns, and forgotten rivers. Scars like cryptic inscriptions, creases where shadows settle. It moves without asking, writes its own story, pulls the past from my pockets, cups water, cups air, cups silence. I am a collection of moving parts, bone and sinew, a murmuring machine, thought leaping between circuits like a bird too restless to land. Somewhere in this tangle of wires, something flickers, a small and stubborn flame. Not the hand, not the mind, but the thing neither can touch. Call it soul, call it ghost. It waits in the dim, watching the eye, watching it. And the poem I want to leave you with is titled On the Edge of Knowing, which is the title of the book. And this poem came about after reading the book When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. And there's a quote that I'd like to share with you. There is a moment, a cusp, when the sum of gathered experience is worn down by the details of living. We are never so wise as when we live in this moment. On the edge of knowing. Suddenly, I know what I want. To be scattered by the sea, where waves churn sand into bone, and wind stirs my ash with driftwood. I have no use for the frail certainties of man, or for those who sit with their stories clutched tight, as if time could still be held. What I want is this: to lose myself among the details, salt on my skin, the gull's cry that shatters the silence, the tide's slow pull, the way the sun bends low at dusk, its light thinning, then gone. For there is a moment when all I have gathered crumbles like sand, and I, for once, am wise enough to let it be. Thank you.
Hello, friend. If you enjoyed this video, please think about scanning the QR code and making a contribution to the local scene. Every dollar is appreciated, and your support helps keep community media alive and our resources free to the community. We'll see you on the local scene.